I'm Naomi. Mr. Stromberg sent me to collect you.
How do you do? This is my wife. Can we offer you a drink before we go?
No, thank you. Mr. Stromberg's a very busy man. His time is precious.
What a handsome craft. Such lovely lines.
When it comes to turning down Superman for James Bond, one might think it's a choice that would set up an actress for a lifetime of Hollywood success. But for Caroline Munro, the decision to play the villainous Naomi in The Spy Who Loved Me instead of Lois Lane in Superman, the movie came with an ironic twist. She ended up getting bitten in the butt. Literally. But before we dive into that painful little mishap, let's take a step back and explore the film that cemented Roger Moore's legacy as 007. The Spy Who Loved Me hit theaters in 1977 as the 10th installment in the James Bond franchise, and many still consider it one of the best. Directed by Louis Gilbert, it was a high-stakes production for Eon, especially after the underwhelming The Man with the Golden Gun. This time, they pulled out all the stops. Roger Moore returned for his third outing as Bond, alongside Barbara Bach as Soviet agent Anya Amasova, and Kurt Jurgens as the villainous Karl Stromberg. Richard Kiel's towering metal-toothed jaws also made his first and most memorable appearance, earning his place as one of Bond's most iconic henchmen. The plot, though classic Bond, had a fresh energy. British and Soviet submarines carrying nuclear warheads mysteriously vanish, forcing MI6 and the KGB into an uneasy alliance. Bond and Amasova are sent to investigate, leading them to Stromberg, a megalomaniac with a plan to destroy the world and create a new civilization under the sea. Along the way, they dodge assassins, including Jaws, and engage in spectacular car chases, one of which involves Bond's Lotus Esprit transforming into a submarine. The film's action, humor, and grand scale redefined the franchise and set the tone for future installments. Behind the scenes, The Spy Who Loved Me was a massive undertaking. The production team had to construct the largest soundstage in the world at Pinewood Studios, just to accommodate the set for Stromberg's supertanker, the Liparus. The budget ballooned to $13.5 million, making it the most expensive Bond film at the time. Ken Adams' elaborate set designs, including the underwater lair Atlantis, gave the film a distinct visual style that stood out even among Bond's typically extravagant locales. One of the most jaw-dropping stunts in Bond history occurs in the film's opening sequence. Rick Sylvester, a professional skier, performed the now famous Union Jack parachute ski jump off Mount Asgard in Canada. It was one of the most dangerous stunts ever attempted in film at the time, and for good reason. One of Sylvester's skis nearly got tangled in his parachute, which could have been fatal. Fortunately, everything went smoothly, and the stunt became one of the most iconic moments in Bond history. The film's vehicles also played a major role in its success. The Lotus Esprit, which doubled as a submarine, became an instant icon. Lotus secured the spot as Bond's car supplier in a rather sneaky way. Public relations manager Don McLaughlin parked a disguised prototype outside Pinewood Studios, leaving producers curious. Their interest turned into a deal, and soon after, the Lotus was dodging gunfire and launching torpedoes underwater. Demand for the Esprit skyrocketed post-release, with customers facing a 3-year waiting list. But not everything was smooth sailing. Richard Kiel, who played Jaws, had to endure serious discomfort for his role. His steel teeth were so painful that he could only wear them for 30 seconds at a time. In one scene, Jaws bites through a chain, except the chain was actually made of licorice. Kiel's stunt double couldn't wear the metal teeth, so the crew fashioned a fake set using aluminum foil wrapped around an orange peel. Then there was Caroline Munro's infamous moment. While filming her introductory scene as Naomi, Stromberg's seductive yet deadly pilot, Munro had an unfortunate encounter with a bee. She accidentally sat on it, getting stung hard on the backside. The pain was so intense that she struggled through filming. And when she's seen greeting Bond and Amasova, that stiff posture and serious expression weren't just acting. They were the result of an aching behind. To add insult to injury, Naomi's fate in the film wasn't exactly glamorous. She gets blown out of the sky by a missile fired from Bond's Lotus. Casting The Spy Who Loved Me had its own drama. Before Barbara Bach landed the role of Anya Amasova, Lois Childs was the frontrunner, but her agent mistakenly told producers she had retired. She later returned to the Bond universe as Holly Goodhead in Moonraker. Meanwhile, Richard Kiel wasn't the first choice for Jaws. Both David Prowse, who played Darth Vader in Star Wars, and Jack O'Halloran were considered. Even Steven Spielberg was initially interested in directing, but he was caught up in post-production for Jaws, the film that coincidentally inspired Jaws the Henchman. Another interesting behind-the-scenes tidbit involved the Egyptian government's involvement in the filming process. A government minder was present to ensure Egypt wasn't portrayed negatively. During one scene, Bond quips Egyptian builders after scaffolding collapses on Jaws. To avoid censorship, Roger Moore merely mouthed the words on set, and the line was dubbed in later. Ironically, Egyptian audiences loved the joke. The film also marked the first Bond film scored by an American Marvin Hamlish, who composed Nobody Does It Better, sung by Carly Simon. The song became one of the most beloved Bond themes, even receiving an Academy Award nomination. In fact, The Spy Who Loved Me was the first Bond film to receive 3 Oscar nominations, a record that held until Skyfall. There's even a bizarre historical footnote tied to the movie. Elvis Presley saw The Spy Who Loved Me just 6 days before his death. He had rented out a theater for a private screening, making it the last movie he ever watched. Despite the many challenges faced during production, The Spy Who Loved Me was a massive success, grossing $185 million worldwide and revitalizing the Bond franchise. Roger Moore himself considered it his best Bond film, and even producer Albert Broccoli named it among his favorites. So, back to that decision Caroline Munro made. She turned down the chance to play Lois Lane in Superman in favor of playing Naomi. While The Spy Who Loved Me cemented her as a cult favorite, it didn't launch her into A-list stardom the way Superman did for Margot Kidder, and, of course, there was that whole bee sting incident. Was it worth it? That's up for debate. But it's safe to say that in choosing Bond over Superman, she ended up with a more painful memory. Literally. Now it's time to hear from you. If you had to choose between playing a Bond girl or starring in Superman, which would you pick? Let us know in the comments.